I'm Rob, make it better. That's what I do. How do you eliminate or find a solution for bullying or racism? Well, about a couple of decades ago, my sister called me. She was very upset, by the way, and she was gonna call a parent meeting because the kids, one of the kids got bullied in school. And then she tells me over the phone that, you know, they're not gonna listen anyway, right? And she's not wrong about that. You tell parents your kids are bullying my kid. What are they gonna do? Tell the kid, oh, you need to behave in school. That's not gonna work. So when she said that, I said, hey sis, if you're gonna put the parent meeting together and no one's gonna listen, why would you want to do that? And she became silent, right? I said, a much better solution is that you call the school, tell them I want to come there, talk to the kids in the class for an hour, right? And she fixed that. So I walk into the classroom and I meet the teacher, right, which is pregnant, by the way. She had lost 10 kilos. She was so stressed out. And I look at the teacher and say hello, and she starts crying. And I just walk up to her and say, everything is going to be okay now. And I had the replacement teacher in the class, actually, right? So I just said, I'm going to do my stuff. So I did my stuff for a while. And my sister's kid, after a bit, you know, looked at me and said, but you're funny. And I said, yeah, I know I'm funny. I'm a funny guy. All right. And then I start doing something that people don't understand, right? What I did here was to start pointing out to every kid in the classroom, everybody looked differently. Everybody had different hairstyle, different clothing, different interests, everything that was different about them. Never once did I raise the question of bullying, racism, or whatever piece of shit. What happened? The bullying stopped. So if you point out anything that's different about how people look, clothing, interests, accent, dialect, whatever they, have a beard or a mustache or something else, your brain does something really funny. Because if everything is different in the context, your brain goes, then everything must be the same. That's what your brain does. People don't know that. So they try to educate people. Oh, you shouldn't be a racist. You're still gonna be one. You shouldn't do bullying. You're still gonna do that. Doesn't matter how much education you give people. You need to teach them how the brain works the way I do it. So, and this is something you can't learn in schools. This is not something you can learn in psychology because they don't understand how the brain works. The unconscious mind doesn't exist. It's just one of those silly concepts people make up, thinking, "Oh, well, it must be true." It's not true. So, as I walked out to the classroom after been doing that, the replacement teacher was saying, "You can't say things like that." And I thought, "What do you mean? I just did." Kind of weird. So once you point everything out that people are different, even twins know they're different. What people usually do is generally do is to look for something that's the same. You have the same interest as me. You have the same thing like the you have the right. But everything is different about people. Everything. But culturally and socially, we're not taught or educated, whatever you call it, um, taught to do that, to not pay attention to what's different. Because if you do that, everything then becomes the same. Politics, religion, whatever stuff you pick up, everything is different. There's nothing to debate. Oh yeah, you have that opinion about that stuff. Okay, cool. You can't be a bully. They did a long-term follow-up on something, back in the 60s. They had this experiment, right? They had kids and they had the teacher, they had the film team, all this stuff. And the teacher told the kids, the test you did yesterday, I realized that the blue-eyed kids were much better in the test and they were much smarter than the brown-eyed kids. And then they put the scarf on the brown-eyed kids and the scarf on the blue-eyed kids. And what happened? Well, during the breaks, the brown-eyed kids didn't want to play because they wanted to be smart, and the blue-eyed kids becomes bullies. Hmm. Next morning, the teacher was, oh yeah, I made a mistake yesterday. It was actually the brown-eyed kids who were smarter and did better on the test, and the blue-eyed kids were worse and dumb. And what do you think happened during the breaks and all that stuff? The same thing. The brown-eyed kids become bullies, and they did a long-term follow-up on that with the students in the classroom, and they just said after a few years that they couldn't be a racist anymore, right? Because they just learned the first-hand way how bad it can be. And they run the same experiment with Oprah. The teacher was with Oprah. They did the experiment before the show started, and she showed that people change their behavior in the context. And then when they told that they were treating people in a specific way, the people in the audience said, "No, I didn't do that." And then they showed the clip them doing it. And when they saw the clip doing the things themselves, they still denied it. That's how bad people can be in the world. Hey, I'm doing it. It's like politicians, like Kennedy, right? I didn't say that, and the journalists showed the clip when they are saying that. And if you have people like in politics doing that, they shouldn't be a politician. They keep lying to people. That's kind of weird if you think about it. Hey, I'm a politician. I'm going to lie to you. Sincerely, I'm going to lie to you really badly. And you're just going to fucking accept it. Because I'm a politician. I know what I'm talking about. I thought that was scientists. Nope. I know better than every scientist in the world. They tell you that with straight face. Sincerely. So, the weather today is kind of been rainy, still kind of a wet condition. We have a little bit of a sun. Pretty nice today. Still kind of falling a little bit of a rain condition. Kind of weird, or autumn, all that stuff. Here's the thing that this is what people do all the time. They don't understand how the brain works. They don't understand how behavior is forming. And all I needed to do in that classroom was point out to every kid how different they were to other kids. Haircuts, interests, clothing, accent, dialect, everything. Because your brain just go, oh, if everything is different, then everything must be the same. It's predictable. But people don't do that. What people usually do is to look for sameness, people with the same interest or something like that, right? And the problem with that, if you saw the TV show House in the when he was hiring a few seasons, he was hiring new students because the actors, quit for whatever reason. Uh, they were looking for he was looking for students that gave him a different opinion, you know, to contradict what he was saying, or trying to find out what's wrong with the medical things going on, right? And one of the guys was basically really good, but he didn't hire him because he was the same as House. Because if you just have people who say yes or do the same thing as you do, you don't get any difference. And if you don't get any difference, you can't progress. That's what people do. They look for the same things. And socially and culturally, you can tell people, you can tell them, inform them how bullying is bad, racism is bad, hate speech is bad. They're still going to do it, right? Until you teach them that everybody is different in every fucking way. It's very funny when you start pointing that out to people in the family. I see your kid, he doesn't look like you. It's very different in how he dresses, what kind of hairstyle he has and what kind of interest he has. You sure it's your kid? People get upset. And I said, why are you upset? He is different. That should be celebrated. And then people get, really mad. That's how socially and culturally you're brainwashed to only accept one thing. That's bad. I would never do that. You still would do that, even if you're educated and all that stuff, right? So, and the funny thing about that, my sister's kid and all that stuff, my sister never asked me what I was going to do. She never asked me after what I did. The bullying just stopped, and I never talked about it because your brain works this way. If you point out everything, imagine every talk show, every movie, every TV show, every interview someone does. Hey, I'm going to interview this person. They're a little bit fat. They dress a little bit like that. They look like that. They have different accent, and they talk blah 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 blah. All this stuff that people are different. What do you think is going to happen? Up to a point, if you educate every kid in your schools, in a decade or two, those kids be adults and they be able to behave in the society much better than you can. If you look at UK, in the British Islands, how do they differentiate between different people there? The way you sound, the dialect you use. I'm talking like this in this way. And immediately people reckon, oh, you that kind of a. They have a class system in the British Islands that is controlled by the voice and how your speech pattern sounds. Stupid. If you just do the same thing there, everybody speak differently. At some point, there won't be any difference between royalty or the common man, as I like to say. It would work. Every talk show in the British Island would run this about the voice, speech pattern, dialects. Everything is different, and how they dress. Everything is different. Run that in every fucking talk show. At some point, everybody will go, "Oh, your brain can't fight this." It's very funny. So you should teach your kids this stuff. As a teacher, you should teach kids, the students, that everybody's different. Point everything out for them. That's different. At some point, your brain go, "Oh, okay," then it's just the same. Because people tell you things like, "We have to protect our way of life," and all I do with these people like that, I say, "What's included in our way?" If we talk about America, are the Native Americans, who was there first before any Europeans and whatever else came along and immigrated into America, are they included in our way of life to protect? Are the Mexicans involved there? Ask them questions like that, and they will probably gonna tell you, well, not really. It's just a selected bit because people think that's safe, right? People have this idea that we're gonna dilute the human our way of life if we invite other people. That's not how it works. If you understand how DNA and evolution works, that means that the more different you are in your DNA, the better offspring you get. Well, people don't know that. I mean, if you understand how genetics works, we already know that there is a female ancestor way back in, I don't know how many 100,000 years it was, but and she's the female ancestor to everybody, and she was black. So every white male or woman have a black ancestor. That's how genetics works, right? People would deny it because they don't like it, but it's different, right? Once you combine two different DNA as separate as possible, because you know what will happen if you marry your cousin, and then your cousin again, like royalty do, you know. Well, we have to conserve the bloodlines. People do that in TV shows and movies also. We have to preserve the bloodline, like Harry Potter, for example. It's just stupid. Actually, if you would combine different bloodlines, you would get a better magicians or wizard, as I like to say. People don't get this. The more different your DNA are, the better chance for evolution to create something better. Human race, for example, Homo sapiens, like we call ourselves, have like 6 or 7 ancestor different lines. You have Denisovan, you have Neanderthals, you have some other, and all those combine into making one that managed to survive. We're not one; we are actually a combination of 6 or 7, so or maybe more. Also, we haven't found everything. It's kind of hard to record. Why didn't they write things down? 1 million years ago. Why didn't you use a computer like everybody else does nowadays? Difference is what's important. But if everybody wants just to be, isolated and all that stuff, it doesn't work that way with human beings. It never has. And what you should do is to take your teachers and tell them to teach your kids in schools and point out everything that's different. If you do that in your family, you will have less argument also. Oh yeah, you just have that because that's how your brain works. It just as soon as everything is different, you go, oh, okay. That's how you solve racism and bullying in the world. It works in every country. This is a very powerful tool because you can imagine if this was every teacher in Iraq or America or Afghanistan would do this. 20 years from now, every kid growing up wouldn't be religious in the same way anymore. It's predictable. It will work. Now you know too. Have a good time. That's why I make people better. I know shit. No one else knows.